Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and today Mark Brown and I are talking about 3 Wind in the Willows TV specials, plus a movie. This started out as an idea to talk about the 2 specials that Mark Brown had seen as a kid, The Adventures of Mole from 1995 and The Adventures of Toad from 1996. Except when I started researching these specials, I realized that not only were there actually 3 specials, there was also a Christmas special from 1994 called Mole's Christmas, but they had also been recut, repurposed, repackaged, and most egregiously recast for an American audience as The Wind in the Willows the movie. So today we're talking about it all. We'll start with Mole's Christmas, even though canonically it comes in between the 2 main specials. It was released first. Then we'll cover The Adventures of Mole and The Adventures of Toad, and then we'll finish up talking about The Wind in the Willows the movie.
It's the power of the story carries on and on and on and on and on.
So I feel like we talked about recording episodes on The Adventures of Mole and The Adventures of Toad like years ago,
Oh yeah, it's been a while.
but I don't remember why we decided on these 2. Were these ones you had seen before?
I had seen these before. These were 2 that my library had them on VHS a lot, and I would borrow them a lot.
Okay.
In particularly the Toad one. The Mole one I kind of thought was boring, so I probably only saw that once before rewatching it for our podcast. But Toad I borrowed a lot, and I really, really, really liked that one.
Okay. That makes sense. It is better than the Mole one.
I'm glad that we all agree.
And then this is something that I feel has changed significantly because as I actually started researching for the Wind in the Willow series, I realized that it wasn't just The Adventures of Mole and The Adventures of Toad. There was also a Christmas special called Mole's Christmas, and then a movie that was an American re-edit of these 2 specials that didn't include any part of Mole's Christmas, which I kind of expected it to, but it did not.
Did it not? I thought it did have. Well, I can't remember.
No, because yeah, well, we'll get into it when we get there. I feel like even though let's start with Mole's Christmas, even though that starts in the middle, because they made this one first. For whatever reason, I cannot figure out why they would want this to be the first thing that they do. The way they did it is very standalone, but also it doesn't feel good enough to be a standalone Christmas special. But allegedly, at least according to what I was reading online, this is one of the most exported UK-made Christmas specials for that time period. Apparently, it's been exported to 213 countries. And I'm like, why?
Maybe that was the only one that was available at that time.
I don't know.
I hope there weren't a lot more, and this was the best that they had.
I don't know. Well, all of these were made by Martin Gates Productions, and I don't really know much about Martin Gates, but from what I've read, he directed a bunch of cheap animated features based on public domain works. So I have a feeling that eventually I'll find more by him to cover for future stories if I get to other stories that he has covered. It looked like he had a bunch, so I don't know. He's somebody that is not well known today because I think most of his stuff ended up in the Dollar General bin.
Yeah. You probably figured out more knowledge about that than I did. Marvin Gates.
Well, watching this, I don't know how you feel it's held up to your childhood memories, but watching this, I could tell that this was something from the bargain bin.
Well, Mole's Christmas and Mole, The Adventure of Mole, I definitely would. They're not the best of the best, but I still like Toad a lot. And when we get to talk about The Adventures of Toad, I'll say more. But when I think of Wind in the Willows a lot, the images from The Adventure of Toad are what come into my mind. The voices of these characters come into my mind, and a lot of the scenes come into my mind. I think of this more than I think of Disney's Wind in the Willows from The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, or any other version of Wind in the Willows. But yeah, Mole's Christmas and The Adventure of Mole, if I never saw them again, I'd be fine.
I feel like really the only saving grace for these is the cast. The voices are actually pretty good.
No, in my opinion, the voices are amazing, and in my opinion, this has probably the best voices of anything in the history of animation, in my opinion, particularly of Rat and Badger. I love Richard Briers as Rat, and I love Paul Eddington as Badger. Up to this day, when I think of Rat or I think of Badger, those are the voices that come to my head. And I
Hmm.
think I would rank them up there among the echelon of like, Robert Williams as the genie or Mel Blanc or whatever you want to put as the top animated performances in anything animation. I would put those two up there, definitely.
I guess I wouldn't say it that high, but they were good.
Fair,
But
fair
that
enough.
also probably has to do with the fact that you grew up with this one and I did not.
That's true. I could have nostalgic. I don't know. I definitely have nostalgic factor. But they're all good. Like you said, like even Hugh Laurie as Toad is good. And
Yeah, I
even
really liked
that.
him as Toad and Peter
Yeah.
Davidson as Mole.
Exactly. Yeah. Like they really fit their characters.
They do. They really do.
Like even the bad American remake or re-edit when we get to that. And the voices weren't great, but like they could have been a lot worse than they were. I was kind of surprised that I'm not gonna say it was good quality or anything, worth, praising, but the voices they weren't as bad as I thought they would be.
Well, you can be the more optimistic one. I'll be the negative one on this one.
Fair enough.
I thought it was a very significant downgrade.
Oh, I'm definitely saying it's definitely worse than the original, but I'm just saying it's not like I was expecting, I guess, even worse than what we got.
Maybe I had too high of expectations because I thought it was awful.
Okay, fair enough. It's definitely not praiseworthy. I'll give you that.
It's probably because I watched them so close together and I got used to these voices that it just magnified how bad, especially like Mole. I
It's
mean, we should wait until we actually get
yeah,
to
yeah,
that one,
yeah,
but
yeah. Hmm.
I thought it was not good.
No, it's definitely noticeable. Definitely.
Well, with Mole's Christmas, this adapts, I think, chapter five of the book, and only chapter five. This takes place after they've left Badger's house in the middle of winter. They add some stuff. Like, this is very padded. Like, so much of this, for all of these, it's very abridged, but
Mhm.
somewhat padded in places. But this is the worst for padding. They add a whole
Definitely.
bunch of stuff that's not in the book.
There's the two weasels that are keep chasing them around for
Yeah, they're
some
not in the
reason.
book.
Mhm.
It's weird what all they decided they had to add to this. I think they really just wanted a Christmas special. And it's like, yes, Christmas is in the book, but it's not as big of a section as you might need for a special, I guess. So they felt like they had to pad it out with all this random stuff. I don't know.
No, no, you're definitely right. It was they tried their best to fit that 30-minute mark, and it
Yeah,
felt a lot longer than 30 minutes.
it did, definitely. But it starts in a human village, which there are humans in The Wind and the Willows, but they mainly take place in the Toad sections. So this was a little strange. I think some of this, like maybe sneaking through the town, might have been from the book, but they added like the scenes with the little girl and her mother talking about getting ready for Christmas. And then they added an animal village with this rabbit, and there was a pheasant, which I don't think is in the book, and weasels and a fox, and the fox is hunting the pheasant. I don't think that was at all in the book. And then you never see any of these characters again.
Nah, they're just there for the runtime.
Yeah. And you have Rat and Ball talking about having a nice visit with Badger. And like that is technically what happened, but this happened after they got lost in the woods and Mole got injured. So it
Mhm.
wasn't like they were just having a nice Christmas visit with Badger.
Yeah, it's a recuperation.
Yeah. And then you get the part from the book where Mole gets homesick. And then, like you said, they've added these weasels. And these weasels were not from the book. In the book, Mole smells his home, gets homesick, convinces Rat to help him find his home. But here you've got these weasels following them, talking about robbing them.
And they never noticed that they're following them either.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like I don't feel like this added anything good to this at all.
I think it was supposed to just be comedic relief,
I suppose, but I didn't
but it's really
laugh.
bad comedic relief.
And then you also get an added bit where Mole keeps going into the wrong holes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is not in the book. And all of this is interspersed with weasel shenanigans. It's weird. And then they actually do find his real home, which is from the book.
Mhm.
They clean it up, get a meal together, and then interrupted by the field mice carolers. But instead of singing the song from the book, they sing Ding Dong Merrily on High for some reason.
These are they call them wassailing mice, right, in the book.
I don't remember, but I've got the book
Mm.
right here. I could flip to that passage and
There we
shout.
go. Professor Jonathan's
Yeah.
ready. I think that's a book I need to buy. I need to own that one. The Wind in the Willows. That'd be nice to have.
Well, if you want a good one, I recommend the one illustrated by Robert Ingpen, Ingpen. I think it's out of print, but you can find it pretty easily on eBay.
Robert.
That's the version that I bought,
Mhm.
and I really like it. I love the illustrations.
And it's not a bridge, right? It's the whole thing.
As far as I know, it's the whole thing.
Yeah. Because I know in the musical, the recent musical from like 2016 or so, there's a song called Wassailing Mice. So that's what made me think that maybe these are the same characters from, and if they're from the book.
Well, they would be the same characters,
Hmm.
but I don't see them called wassailing mice. They're
Okay,
just
so maybe that's
called the
just from
field mice or the singers.
okay, maybe that's just the title of the song then.
It must be.
Hmm. Yeah, it's been a while since I've read The Wind in the Willows, but it is a good one
It is, yeah.
until you get to the random chapter about Pan.
Sarah loves that chapter.
What the
It
heck's
is
going on
very
here?
strange.
Yes.
But yeah, with the carolers are in the book, but they've added a bunch of stuff with the carolers that are not in the book. Like they invite them in for food, but he's been gone all year, so he has nothing. So Rat sends one of the mice to the shops for food. And then there's a scene where little mouse has to go to the bathroom. I don't know. It's more added shenanigans to pad the runtime.
I think that's the gist of Mole's Christmas.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Like, I can see why we never had this one at the library. I doubt this probably got a VHS release. Well, I don't know. You said it's been exported to 200 something countries, so maybe someone put it on VHS.
I found a VHS on eBay, so it was put on VHS. I don't think it's ever been on DVD.
I get why.
But yeah, after the feast with the mice, they leave. Mole and Rat sit by the fire, and that's the end.
Yeah, that's Mole's Christmas. I mean, eh, there's not much I could say about it. Just what stands out for me a lot is the those random weasels that are trying to steal from Rat and Mole, and the Rat and Mole being oblivious to them, and yeah, and that's not good. If that's the only thing that's standing out to me about that special.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre addition. It really, like, even if they had made all of these specials into a full feature, I don't think they lose much by cutting most of this. I think they could still keep most of the stuff that was from the book, but like at least half of this is stuff that they threw in for padding the runtime.
Mhm.
You could cut it and lose nothing.
Definitely. You could cut it and insert it into the Adventures of Mole, and it would still fit.
Basically, yeah.
Because the Adventure of Moles is kind of, I guess, you could call it a prequel to the Adventures of a Toad.
Yeah, well, The Adventures of Mole covers the first four chapters of
Yeah.
the book, and then The Adventures of Toad covers chapter six on with skipping over another chapter. Well, two chapters. Yeah, two chapters, because there are two other chapters that don't really add anything to the whole story.
Well, one is Pan. What's the other one?
Rat is visited by the sea rat, and he wants to go on
Oh,
an
yeah, yeah,
adventure.
yeah. The Sea Rat. That could be a cool character if you do him right.
So far, I have not seen that adapted in
Me
any
either.
version that I've watched. I think it is alluded to in the version that I grew up with, but the whole chapter is not included.
Okay.
Like I think they make it more. I mean, I did record this a few months ago with Sarah, but so I haven't seen it in a few months, but I think it was a dream sequence. I don't think it was like an actual thing that happened.
I feel Pan would be more like a dream sequence.
They included Pan in that version too.
No,
That one was actually the one I grew up with so far is still my favorite. It's very, very faithful to the book.
is that the it's like motion, not stop motion kind of.
No, that one was from 83. The one I grew up with was from 95. It was made around the same time as this one, but it was a
And it,
British production.
well, this one's British too, but this one has like a green frog, right? Green toad.
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen the covers. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that one's really good. I recommend it.
Mm. When I was looking up different versions of Wind in the Willows, one thing I didn't really realize is there have only been two Wind in the Willows adaptations that have been to theaters. One was Disney's Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, and the other was the Wind in the Willows with the Monty Python gang with Terry Jones and
Hmm.
all of them. I didn't realize that because, like you said, there's a lot of adaptation of these, but they're mostly like TV adaptations or direct to video or something. So it's kind of interesting. There's only been two theatrical ones.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because like even there's the Rankin Bass version, which I would have assumed would have been a theatrical version, but I guess it wasn't.
Yeah, that was probably in the same vein as like Rudolph, I'm guessing. Like on TV, I mean.
Well, it was longer than that, so
Well, yeah,
it wasn't like a short special, but it I guess it was a TV special.
it's like a TV movie. Yeah.
Yeah, TV movie.
I think it's about time we get a new a new theatrical Into the Willows.
I keep hearing that people want to. The
Hmm.
like a few years ago, Guillermo del Toro had talked like he'd
Yeah.
been approached by Disney, but then Disney wanted to modernize it, and he didn't want anything to do with that.
Yeah, they wanted him to like ride a skateboard and say stuff like radical dude and Guillermo del Toro's like it's been a pleasure working with you. And he was
Or
like,
not working with you.
yeah, which I totally don't blame him.
Yeah. No, the sometimes modernizing things works, but I don't know that that's a good direction to go with Wind in the Willows. I feel
There,
like the time and setting of the Wind in the Willows
mhm.
is very important to the story.
I feel there are some things that are like you say, like the time and setting that the book or whatever takes place in is important, and to keep it that way is like it's like kind of like the meat of the story is based on that. So
Hmm.
modernizing it would ruin it.
Yeah. I feel like Guillermo del Toro could have done something, but he would have had to work really, really hard. And I don't even know if he would have even been able to make something as good as you would have expected Guillermo del Toro to make.
Two things I would like to see is like I mentioned already the Wind in the Willows musical, which I absolutely love. I would love to see a film version of that. That'd be cool. Or two, I would love to see a motion capture Wind in the Willows. I think that would be really cool looking as well.
I guess if it's done better than other motion capture things in the past have
Hmm.
been. There have been some motion capture things that have been good, but it's usually in the context of a larger production. The movies that I've seen that are all motion capture, the only one that's even come close to looking good is Tintin.
That's what I'm thinking of too.
When I think of motion capture, I think of like Mars Needs Moms.
Oh, okay, no, no,
The-
I never think of
and
that.
even like the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol, which is weirdly one of the most faithful adaptations. I don't love the look of it because of the motion capture.
Well, that's why I think motion capture, especially for that, because they're humans, it looks a little off. Like Tintin, I
That's
think works
true.
because they're it's a graphic novel, so they could play with how the character looks, so it actually fits. But like, I feel one of the Willows with them being anthropomorphic animals, I think that could have a cool look about them.
That is a good point. This makes a better case for a motion capture film than something with all humans.
Yeah, yeah, because it's not like the one of the Willows are animal characters that on all fours and all that. They're actually anthropomorphic
Yeah.
and they like you said they work alongside humans and
Hmm.
so I feel it could work.
Yeah.
Maybe they should have done well. We saw what happened with cats, but
I still haven't seen Cats.
oh, then keep it that way.
Oh, I will not keep it that way. It's going to be on the podcast someday. I just need to actually do it.
You heard it here
But
first.
my cousin Sasha, who has never done a podcast with me, grew up with the original Cats. She absolutely loved, there was a VHS she
Mhm.
watched to death. So I really want to do a podcast with her talking about that original Cats. I don't think she has any interest in seeing the new one, but Nikki, Trivial Theater, she loves talking about bad movies. So if I do the original Cats with Sasha, then I will do the remake with Nikki. So I do want to do Cats one day.
The
I
original one, if we're talking about the 1998 filmed stage version one, that's good. The remake, that's uh that's just bad.
I've heard. I'm
It's
actually kind of looking forward to seeing it because of how bizarre it looks.
eh, it's not even just the looks. It's just like what they do with the story. Like I mean, we'll go on a tangent here, but like Cats, Cats itself doesn't really have a plot. It has a very bare minimum basic plot just to hold the story together. But really, it's just about one cat coming on stage and singing about themselves and then going off, and then another one doing the same thing until the end of the show. But then with the remake, they try to make like a plot out of it and make a bad guy and it just doesn't work. But hey, maybe you'll like it.
I think I will enjoy watching it. I don't know if I will like it as a whole,
Mhm.
but I'm still looking forward to seeing just how much of a train wreck it is.
It'll be one of those that you enjoyed and I didn't, and because I have a good number on you that I enjoyed and you didn't. So we'll
Maybe.
we'll it evens out.
Yeah.
But yeah, when in the Willows motion capture, I'd love to see that.
Well, let's move on to The Adventures of Mole.
Yeah, this is one that like I said, I had borrowed from the library, but I don't think I've seen it. Maybe no more than twice. Definitely not thrice. I don't even know if I did it twice. It might have just been once, but I remember just being overall bored with this one compared to the Adventures of Toad, so that's why I didn't bother watching it much. But like you said, it covers a good chunk of the beginning chapters of the book and introduces us to, you know, Mole and Rat, and also, they all in all these versions they have the same voices, which, like we've said, are really good voices. Like they fit the characters.
Hmm. I haven't been able to find much behind the scenes stuff on these. Like these are very obscure.
Yeah, these are very hard to find info on. Like I was looking as well. Like this is something like I'd love to like interview someone who worked on this, and that way we'd actually get more info.
Yeah, yeah. I would really like to know the thought process of making this into two specials instead of just making a movie. Like obviously they went back and made a movie out of these specials, but like why didn't they start with a movie? Especially with the cast that they have. You've got big names in the UK. Like you have a good cast. Why not make this a full-on movie?
The only thing I could think of is maybe budget, but like you said, they already have like the cast definitely ain't cheap. But I don't know.
I, and maybe it's because they were used to making, for lack of a better term, bargain bin movies that they just were going in that direction with this by default. I don't know.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess.
I suppose.
And remember, this is like when Hugh Laurie still isn't as big and isn't a big name yet as he will be in the future. Like he's probably just most famous for his work as Stephen Fry on Blackadder and Jeeves and Wooster at this time, I'm assuming, and Fry and Laurie.
Maybe it's because I've seen him for so many years in those roles, but it feels like those should be big enough that he would
Well,
be a big star.
fair enough,
But
fair
maybe
enough.
not. I don't know. I guess House is what grew him into fame over here,
Yeah,
but I grew up with PBS, so I grew up with all the British stuff.
that is very true. Yeah, Jeeves and Wooster was from 1990 to 1993, so yeah, that predates this. Blackadder was 80s, 83, 89, so that also predates. Okay, yeah,
Hmm.
you may have a point. Brian Laurie was also 89 to 95, so
Well, they also got Peter Davidson, who is a huge name from Doctor Who. Like,
he's one of the doctors, right?
yeah, he's the fifth Doctor.
Okay.
This is a British production, so they were obviously going after bigger. Like, Doctor Who isn't like a massive international hit or anything, and at the time, it would have been mostly a big thing in the UK, and also Doctor Who was done. I think it ended the year I was born, so it probably had been off the air for like 9 years at this point.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know.
And Richard Briers and Paul Eddington are two big sitcom names in the UK as well. So yeah, so you're right. There are four big names here.
Maybe this was the people who were they hadn't been in something for a little while, so they were, I don't know, getting people that weren't too hard to get.
I guess. Because like you said, this came out the same, like around the same time as the other British adaptation that you grew up with. And I don't know what the cast of that is, but would you say this cast is more bigger than the cast of the one you grew up with, or is that one bigger?
Let me pull up the cast.
Oh, Peter Davison's daughter actually married David Tennant. Interesting.
Hmm. And his daughter plays someone who is called the Doctor's daughter in Doctor Who. She was in one episode as sort of a clone of the Doctor, but called the Doctor's daughter.
And who was the doctor at that time? That was David Tennant.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the fifth Doctor's daughter became the 10th Doctor's clone daughter and then married the 10th Doctor.
nice.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, this does have a pretty big cast too. It
Okay.
you have live action segments starring Vanessa Redgrave,
Oh wow, that is big.
and then the voice cast is Alan Bennett as Mole, Michael Palin as Rat, Michael Gambon as Badger, Rick Mayall as Toad, and then you've got a few big-ish names as some of the smaller characters. James Villiers, I don't know how you pronounce that, as Magistrate, Emma Chambers as the jailer's daughter, Judy Cornwell as the barge woman,
Hmm.
and then I'm not sure who Anne Reitel is, but they play a bunch of people.
Okay, nice.
So I would say it's probably a maybe on par, the two
Yeah,
casts.
that's what I was about to say. It looks around similar, at least for the main four.
Hmm.
There's no like Brad Pitts or anything,
No.
or Laurence Olivier's.
The
Michael Keaton.
biggest name is probably Vanessa Redgrave.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
she's mainly just there as the narrator. She does have like a live action role, but I'm sure they shot that in 2 hours.
Nice. I have to see this one day.
It's still my favorite. Like I've still got a couple more to watch, but I can't imagine that the others are going to beat this one. Partly because I think it's good, and partly because this is my nostalgic one.
Yeah, this one. We all have our own.
Hmm. Yeah, anyways, getting into the
Anyways,
story of the adventures of Mole. It starts pretty true to the book with the spring cleaning scene. It also has a weird Disney knockoff sounding song.
oh yeah, I forgot about this.
All of the music in these are very forgettable.
Yeah.
You get like a flavor of the era,
Hmm.
and that's all I remember. It's just a flavor of the era with the music. There's no memorable lyrics. If I
Yeah.
I didn't write anything down, but like listening to the lyrics back when I watched it originally, it was very generic. Like
Yeah, I
they
looked at that.
needed
Yeah.
they needed some lyrics. They went with the first draft. They just wanted a song and they didn't care how good it was. But yeah, it starts with the spring cleaning, but everything in these, I think I mentioned before, is very abridged.
Mhm.
So they didn't seem to make it very clear that he had spent all morning working and was really tired when he went outside. The way they framed it, it seemed like he just started working and then gave up immediately.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. It was just spring. Did start doing a little something and then left and ran out,
Yeah,
skipping in the part in the forest.
yeah, that's not how it happened in the book.
What? You mean that this is an adaptation? Wow.
And then they actually included the rabbit at the toll road with his onion sauce exchange.
Oh yeah.
And then he passes by some mice children that I don't think were in the book, but I was like, were those supposed to be the mice that were in the Christmas special? I did not go back and rewatch the Christmas special to find out. But they made a
Yeah, I don't
special point
remember.
to point out these mice children. So I was like, did they feel like they had to include them because they put them in the Christmas special?
I think they're just there to say good morning, Mr. Mole, and that was it.
Maybe. Yeah. And then you've got the scene where he meets Rat and they go boating and go on a picnic. And it all seemed pretty accurate to the book, abridged, but accurate enough.
And then Mole as a character is like, part of him is curious and all that, but then part of him is like just taking over, like, let me row the boat, and then he destroys everything, and then he gets into remorse about what he's done. And it's just like you caused this problem in the first place.
He's very impulsive.
Mhm.
Like they do that is accurate to his character in the book. It also almost seems like a contradiction because he's like such a quiet, meek seeming person, but then he'll like have a fit of madness and want to do something so badly that he doesn't care what he has to do what he wants to do.
Yeah, it's not like Toad. Toad was like constantly in a state
Yeah,
of madness.
yeah.
Mole can get triggered, and when he gets triggered, something's gonna be destroyed.
Yeah.
And good old Rat has the that old British personality of being cheerful and taking things as they come.
Hmm.
There's probably a word for that, but I can't think of it now.
He's sort of the voice of reason.
Yeah,
Like he can have his moments too, and I think Badger is the ultimate voice of reason.
he's the wise.
But at least
Hmm.
as far as it goes between Mole and Rat, Rat is the voice of reason between the two of them.
Oh, hands down. And then we even meet Otter for like one scene, right?
Yeah. And he is in the book here. I'm glad
Hmm.
that they included him because not all the versions that I've seen so far include Otter or even include him here.
I think in the musical, they changed it to a woman, Mrs. Otter, but I think she has a bit of a part in the musical, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm. One of these days I need to do the musical. I don't think I will get to it for this series, but if I do, I have too many plans for next year, so I don't know if I'll get to it next year, but I will get back to Wind in the Willows. So that will be one of the first ones that I do, because that one is one that I've wanted to see.
Well, if you do it in 2026 and you need someone, let me know.
Yeah, definitely. You also have a couple of characters in here with all of the picnic rowing shenanigans. These two, like I thought of them as ducks, and I thought that they added them as characters, but then I was flipping through the book, and there's like one line in the book about a couple of moorhens sniggering about Mole's bedraggled appearance. So I'm
Oh, okay,
wondering if
okay.
that's supposed to be like they saw that line and was like, let's turn these into two gossipy characters.
It wouldn't surprise me.
And then there's like this montage of Mole swimming with the mice children, which is
Mhm.
not from the book. And there's like this whole very 90s-esque sounding musical number that it's just like this is another Disney knockoff thing.
They really want to push the idea of these mouse children being important,
And they're not.
and they're
Like
not.
they just show up from time to time.
I guess they have the cute factor.
Maybe, but not cute enough to be memorable because I like until I started reading my notes, I completely forgot that they were in this movie. I was like, oh yeah, they did keep showing up, didn't they? And then after that, they have another song, which is what I thought that the song here was going to be when Rat makes up the Ducks song, which is from the book. There's a whole poem in the book when he's watching the ducks. And it's one of those things I always find it interesting to see how each version interprets this song because so far it seems like most of the versions do want to use this song in some way. It's always different music, but it's just interesting to see how each version handles it.
Yeah, when we get to the Mr. Toad song, I'll mention something there too.
Then they go visit Toad, and this is where he proposes the road trip with his horse-drawn carriage, which is basically an early 1900s RV.
Yeah. Toad doesn't appear much in this special, but he's introduced here.
Yeah. They do keep that pretty close to the book because in the
Hmm.
first four chapters, Toad is up until the road trip, Toad is more mentioned than anything.
Hmm.
And then he kind of disappears after he goes crazy. But yeah, they go on this road trip. It's pretty close to the book, even down to the horse complaining that he's not being considered in anything.
Hmm.
And then, of course, they're run off the road by a motor car, and Toad becomes obsessed.
Motomania, to quote the Disney version.
And then we leave Toad again for a while, and we go on to Mole wanting to go meet Badger. Rat doesn't want to go yet, so Mole sets out on his own when Rat's asleep.
Oh, I forgot. That's what happens now. Okay, yeah.
And this was also mostly accurate to the book, but also quite abridged. And I feel like they omitted like the most iconic part of this scene, probably partly because it's in the version that I grew up with, but also it's explicitly mentioned in the book that there's this whistling that he keeps hearing in the woods, which makes this scene in all the versions that I've seen, except for this one, like the creepiest scene in the story, because he's going through these dark woods and he hears this creepy whistling around him, which I think is just the stoats and weasels whistling.
Mhm.
It's not like whistling a tune, it's just like animals whistling. It's like a creepy squeaking whistling noise, but they don't have that in this version. I don't know if they thought that was too scary for little kids or what.
So then it just looks like Mole did another impulsive thing and just left Rat and went traversing through the forest, hoping to find Badger.
Something like that, yeah.
Then he gets injured and hides in like a cave or something, right under a hole.
I think it's a hole under a tree, but
Yeah,
yeah, he has to be rescued. Rat finds him eventually, and then
good
he
old
gets
Rat.
injured again, tripping over Badger's door scraper.
And they have an argument about the doormat or something, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah, I don't remember how exactly that went.
Yeah, but it was something that triggered Mole again.
Well, in the book, and I think in this version and most versions, Mole trips over the door scraper and then gets mad that Rat is excited about this because Rat recognizes that this means that someone lives here and it's probably Badger's house. But Mole doesn't get that and just gets mad about it. But yes, this is Badger's. He invites them in. They have dinner and they update him on Toad. Apparently, he's now gone through several motor cars and has been in and out of the hospital. Which I don't remember. Like that is in the book. I had to look it up, but I don't remember that ever being something specifically pointed out in other versions. Like he's been in the hospital multiple times.
I didn't notice that either.
So they make plans to go visit him in the spring and
Take matters in their own hands.
take matters into their own hands, get him
What's the
out of this
word?
madness.
What's the word when like someone's addicted to something and you step into
An intervention.
intervention? That's what I'm looking for. I
That's
think it's
basically what they're planning. They don't use that
literally, yeah.
term, but that's
Mhm.
basically what they're planning. So they go to bed, and then the next morning, there are two of the creepiest, scariest looking hedgehog children I've ever seen. They they sound adorable, but they look atrocious. Like who designed these characters?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't remember them actually.
They look like aliens. Maybe they're only creepy looking to me, but they look terrible. They sound very cute. They are
Mhm.
adorable children voices, but yeah, I do not like the design. And then Otter also shows up.
Oh
He
yeah,
tells them that everyone was worried because they had disappeared, so we went out to find them.
because this is probably the longest that Rat's ever been away from his house or the riverbank in particularly.
Probably, yeah. I guess that would be why everyone back home was worried and sent Otter looking for him.
Yeah.
But that's where the adventures of Mole end, about the point where the Christmas special would start.
Mhm.
And it seems like they're going to have another obligatory 90s song over the end credits. But then just before the credits roll, there's another scene with another motor car accident and a crazed toad being loaded into an ambulance. And then it actually ends with a weird Beatles sounding song. And such a bizarre song choice. I was like,
Mhm.
where did this come from? This doesn't fit with the movie at all,
I guess just British. That's probably it.
I suppose. Just a weird choice.
So like, I would prefer to watch The Adventures of Mole over Mole's Christmas, but
Oh, me too.
I still would rather not watch it.
Well, I suppose probably me as well. Okay, moving on to The Adventures of Toad.
The best of the three. The one that I have this nostalgia for.
Well, I've in more ways than one, because
Mhm.
did you feel like the animation was better in this one? I felt it looked different and like it was slightly upgraded.
Well, I know Mole's Christmas definitely had the worst animation, but I felt Mole and Toad had the same level of animation. I could be wrong.
I felt like Mole's Christmas was the worst, and then The Adventures of Mole was a significant upgrade, and then The Adventures of Toad was like a mild upgrade.
No, it could be, yeah.
Like, especially if you look at Badger, which actually I would say Badger is the only one who looks like a downgrade to me because he's blue, kind of. Like he has a blue tint to him, which looked
Mhm.
weird. I don't know.
But yeah, this definitely has the best animation, like for TV quality.
Hmm. But yeah, this picks up in chapter 6 after where Mole's Christmas would have ended. And it plays out pretty close to the book, very abridged again.
Mhm.
But it starts with Toad with his car and then them all showing up to stage their intervention, locking him in his room, taking turns guarding him. And he hatches his escape plan and tricks Rat into getting him a doctor and a lawyer because he thinks he's dying.
Yeah, Hugh Laurie performs Toad so great
Yeah.
with the drama.
Yes. He's my favorite voice in all of
Mm.
these. I loved Hugh Laurie as Toad.
He's really good. I still like Richard Pryor's as Rat and Paul Editing as Badger the best because I feel they fit the characters really almost 100%.
Hmm.
But everyone was good in this voice wise.
Hmm. And of course, he escapes and steals a car. This all, it feels like I'm going through this very fast, but I feel like the movie or special went through it very fast because I feel like other versions spent a lot more time with this intervention and him planning his escape and then going out and stealing a car. I feel like this one really breezed through it pretty quick.
I guess because it was only half an hour they had, and they wanted to fit in everything that happens from
Well, it was 50 minutes. Like both of the specials were 50 minutes.
50 even. Sorry, yeah,
But even though it was abridged, I feel like they got the important stuff in. I thought I liked that they kept the good parts of the dialogue in the courtroom scene, especially the line about cheeking the police. Yeah, that one cracks me up.
hmm Toad is just like one of the best literary characters. I think like he's just written
Uh,
so well.
yeah, he's one of those people that I say I would hate him in real life, but I love him as a character.
Yeah, he's like someone you don't want to be friends with personally, but like you not admire, but like you like want to know about from afar.
Yeah, yeah, I love him as a character.
Like a Kardashian, but more tolerable.
Infinitely more tolerable.
Yes.
Of course, he ends up sentenced to 20 years in jail. And I feel like this special seems to gloss over how long he was in prison. Like he didn't actually spend his whole 20 years there.
Yeah.
But I mean, like with this special, they skip the Piper at the Gates of Dawn, which is the Pan chapter, which I'm not sure exactly how long that takes. But at some point, the book mentions that he's been in there for weeks. So he does spend a decent time in prison, but this seems like not much time passes at all.
Yeah, it's almost instantaneously when he meets the jailer's daughter.
Yeah, like in the book, I think he almost becomes depressed and he stops eating and he's kind of wasting away. And the jailer's daughter comes in because she loves animals and she's worried about how thin he's getting. And she basically makes it her mission to get him eating again, cheer him up. And it takes a little while in the book, but it's very almost instantaneous in this special.
Like I personally have memories of when I was watching this movie, and especially at that scene. I guess one time I had watched this while eating breakfast and eating like a good piece of toast. So every time I see this scene, like the memory of toast comes back in my head, and it's just like it triggers this like sensory thing in me. It's
That
just like a nice, enjoyable piece of toast.
the toast is like one of the iconic things. I mean, it is from the book, but like for me, watching the other version from
Yeah,
1995, the scene of him with the toast, the way he's eating the toast, and there's like butter flying all over the
yeah, yeah,
place.
yeah.
The toast it's an important part of the story.
I guess that could also be a reason why it's stuck in my mind.
But yeah, this version, it cuts everything down. It gets to her planning his escape pretty quickly. I did like that they kept like a little line in there where he starts to think that she has a thing for him. Like she's
Yeah.
doing this because she loves animals,
Mhm.
but Toad thinks that maybe she has a thing for him, but he regrets that there's too big of a social gap for them between them for it to work.
I know a lot of people ship them too in the fandom, so yeah, that definitely exists.
That line should not surprise me. A lot of people ship them, and there's a fandom for everything.
Yes, so it's not unheard of.
But yeah, she has this plan to bring in her aunt.
Who's the washerwoman for the jail? Yeah,
Yes. Give him her clothes so he can escape disguised as the washerwoman while she gets tied up and is left in the cell for somebody to find later.
which works.
And then this is all pretty abridged, but it stays pretty close to what it needs to be, pretty true to the story. I especially liked the line where he's trying to convince the engine driver to give him a ride,
Yeah,
and he says he has a bunch of kids at home, and they'll be playing with matches and upsetting lamps.
you wouldn't want that, would you?
And then I also liked when the police are catching up to them on the train, the engine driver talks about he doesn't like being ordered about by police in his own engine, and that's why he agrees to help Toad.
Yeah, the only reason he agrees to help him escape the cops is he's just anti-police or anti-establishment or something. That's really it.
Something like that.
Yeah. And I think he throws Toad off into the pond when they come across a bend.
They go through the tunnel and he
Yeah. Oh, the
rolls
tunnel.
down
Okay.
the hill to escape before the police see that he's off the train.
Oh, was there no pond in this version?
There
Yeah, I got that mixed up.
might have been, I don't remember. I, it's been a few days since I watched this, and I've seen a bunch of versions, so some of
Yeah,
them kind of get scrambled in my head. I don't remember which ones he ends up in a lake.
yeah, it's been like a month since I've seen this one, so yeah.
I mean, he ends up wet multiple times
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this version, so
hmm
maybe this is one of the times.
And sometime along this journey, he sings one of the songs from the book, which is The Incredible Mr. Toad. And I always
Hmm.
find it interesting to see, like you mentioned before, and when we were talking about the Adventures of Mole, like how different people adapt this song with different
Hmm.
music. Because I know like this movie has its own version of that song, and then I know like the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, the Monty Python version that has its own version of the song, which is a total different tune. And it's like I just find that interesting.
Yeah, that this is the other song that it's always interesting to see how it differs.
Yeah.
I again, because I grew up with the 95 version, the tune from that one is the one that's in my head. Like that song is from the 95 version in my head, even though it's from the book.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's a song from the 95 version because I've seen that version so many times, especially the way he goes, bang goes the drum. The trumpets all tooting. But then we also get another scene in here that I feel like they've added to this version, like the Christmas special, because you have Toad going off on his adventures, and we go back to Rat and Mole. And this is where they cut out another chapter. This is where Rat meets a sea rat and longs for adventure.
Okay, okay.
But instead of doing that, they have this scene, which is brief, but it's still something that they made up for this movie, with Rat and Mole watching Toad Hall, and they are being watched by two weasels who are plotting to take over Toad Hall.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes.
Which, I mean, the weasels do take over Toad Hall,
hmm
but there's never a scene where you are with the weasels as they make up this plot. You
Correct. Yeah.
find out about them taking over Toad Hall
After,
later
yeah.
once Toad is home and it's revealed. You don't actually get any.
You don't know what this
Yeah,
is. No.
yeah. So then we're back with Toad as he's traveling home, and we get the scene with the barge
The
woman.
barge.
And I was kind of surprised at how close they played it to the book because I almost thought that they might skip part of this because this all played out very close to the book, where right down to stealing her horse from her,
Yeah.
leaving her stranded, and taking him and selling him for 5 shillings and some stew.
That's Toad for you.
Again, I love him as a character. I would hate him if he was real. He's kind
Steal,
of awful.
yes, steal your horse.
And then, of course, we get the scene where he comes back to the people whose car he's stolen and ends up tricking them into basically
Oh,
hijacking their car.
let him drive it. Yeah.
And then he drives them into a lake and escapes. And he eventually makes his way back home, and Rat fills him in on what's happened at Toad Hall. And then there's a scene that is from the book, but it is not one that I had seen adapted in any other version until this one. So I thought when I first watched this, because I hadn't gotten to this point in the book when I first
Hmm.
watched this version, where Toad tries to go back home and is repeatedly thwarted by the Wild Wooders.
Oh, okay.
And once I got to that point, I was like, they made this up. So I went to the
Yeah.
book. They didn't, and I had to laugh because in the book, the first scene is described as Toad being met by a ferret with a gun, and the phrasing just cracked me up. A ferret with
Bird
a
with a
gun.
gun. Wow. That's an image. Is the scene where Mole dresses up as a cellar woman or something and goes to Toad
He
Hall to
goes
get
in
is
as the
yeah,
washerwoman.
yeah,
Yeah,
is watch
that's
is
from the
that from the
book.
book? Okay.
Yeah, that's in other versions too. Yeah, he's thwarted trying to take it back himself. So he goes back to Rats. Badger shows up and they make a plan to go back and get Toad Hall back. Of course, including the detail of Badger knowing about the secret passage from Toad's
Yeah.
father that he never told Toad about.
Exactly. This was always been the Deus Ex Machina, that just kind of a thing with me. It's like, by the way, there's this secret passage. I know about it. You don't, but your father told me about it and told me never to tell you unless something like this ever happened.
Toad's father knew that Toad was kind of a screw up.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. He was a wise father. Like, don't tell him whatever you do. He does not need to know this.
And then, like you said, there's a scene with Mole going back in disguise to tell the Wild Wooders that there's an army coming that are basically planning to wipe the floor with them.
I never understood why he would do this because I feel that that would make them more alert and prepared.
I kind of agree with you. I'm kind of on
Yeah.
Toad's side here. Toad thinks this is a terrible idea, but Badger thinks it is a good idea. I suppose they're presuming that this is going to make them on edge, and
Oh, okay.
they're plant the way Mole described this, there's like an army coming. So
Yeah.
since they're sneaking in by the back door, basically underneath the floor,
Mhm.
I guess they think that they can trick them into thinking that there are more people than there are. And I guess that's what happens. It works. So
Yeah.
I still kind of agree with Toad thinking that this is a
Yeah.
terrible idea to tell them this.
Yeah, like I could understand like for him pretending to be the washerwoman to get like information about okay, which
Hmm.
exits are being guarded, how many are in there, something like that. But I didn't really get, oh, by the way, we're a whole army's coming to, kick you guys out.
Uh-huh.
But like you said, there's merit in, just getting them on edge
Hmm.
and watching the doors and stuff, right? As opposed to, being prepared for a sneak attack.
Hmm. But yeah, I mean, the idea works because they're easily defeated. And I feel
Hmm.
like it's more easy in this version than other versions I've seen because the battle does not last long at all. They basically go in, fight a couple minutes, and that's it. They're defeated.
A badger, a rat, a mole, and a toad against like, 30 weasels, ferrets, and stuffs.
I mean, I could see a badger taking on a bunch of those creatures. I don't know how well a water rat, a toad, and a mole would do, but a badger could probably hold its own.
So it's mostly the badger holding this fort. But the thing is, this badger is old too. So like, how strong is he?
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it works.
But yeah, they defeat them and then they plan a banquet because apparently that's etiquette.
Yes, yes, for some reason, yes.
And then apparently some of the stoats and weasels come back to say that they're sorry and they were put
Yeah,
up to it by the chief weasel.
is that in the book?
Oh, I think so, but let me check.
Because I don't think I ever heard that before until this one. And we actually don't see them come in and apologize, and we just hear Mole telling us, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, well, I take it back.
They were very penitent, and they said they were extremely sorry for what they had done, but it was all the fault of the chief weasel and the stoats, and if they could ever do anything for us at any time to make up, we only have to mention it.
And that just drops my whole opinion of this last chapter of the book. But oh well, I guess that's etiquette too.
I guess that probably helps explain why it was so easy to defeat them, because a bunch of them weren't actually really all in on it. They were basically just being used.
Yes, that makes sense.
So yeah, they plan this banquet, and Toad wants to do all of these grand speeches and songs, but they shut him down and make him promise to be humble. And he seems like he's actually sorry. He's actually crying and seems penitent. And then they actually do include his last little song from the book where he sings to himself since he's not allowed to sing to an audience.
Mm.
And then he goes out to the party and you see the horrifying hedgehogs again. And then they have a few little, I don't know, postscripts, scenes showing the various people that Toad had wronged during his
Yeah,
escape.
he sent them all letters and like remuneration, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And they don't make it clear in this version, but in the book, they basically had to force him to send something to the barge woman. He had zero intention of sending her anything. Even
Much
though she was the one he wronged the most, he did not want to pay her for the horse.
stole the horse, sold the horse.
And then it ends with the scene, which is from the book, with a mother weasel telling her child about the fierce
Great Mr.
badger
Toad.
and the
Yeah.
toad and rat and mole, and using them as threats for good behavior.
Does does the book have anything about Mr. Toad getting into airplanes after this, or is that just from certain adaptations?
I don't think so. I think that is something that was added. Was it in the Disney version? I wonder if that's where
The,
it
the Disney version
came
had it.
from. Because as far as I remember, Toad is actually genuinely reformed by the end. I don't think he gets into a new
New
mania.
Mania. Okay.
And there are sequels to The Wind in the Willows, but they were not written by Kenneth Graham.
Hmm.
So it is possible that the airplane detail came from one of the sequels. Actually, no, it did, because they made one of the sequels into a sequel to the one I grew up with, which I didn't see until this year when I started doing this for the podcast.
Hmm.
So it was the same art style and cast as the one I grew up with, but it was the sequel, which was not written by Kenneth Graham, and Toad has an airplane in the sequel. So that is probably where that idea came from.
The Willows in Winter. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is based on the novel from 1993 by William Harwood. Okay. Okay, yeah, this might be it.
Yeah, that's where this one ends. Plus a very 90s sounding closing credit song.
Yes, this was the one that I would watch a lot from the library growing up. I haven't like before, I hadn't seen it in like many, many years, but a lot of my nostalgia came back and a lot of the memories as a kid. And yeah, this one definitely is between the three, this one definitely hands down is the best.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If anyone disagrees, I really want to hear your your reason.
If anyone disagrees, it is probably because of nostalgia. Because when I was looking for a copy of Mole's Christmas, I saw people talking about it and they loved it. So
I guess.
nostalgia rules everything, I guess.
Good old nostalgia. It's like, have you seen Inside Out 2 yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, when nostalgia comes out, they're like, go back in. It's not time yet. It's too early.
I love that that was June Squibb. I love her
Yeah, yeah.
voice. I need to see her new movie. Our theater has not gotten it.
Thelma, yeah.
I
It
have
look,
not seen it anywhere. I really want to see that.
I think this is her first starring role in a film, so like it's nice that she got it at age what 94 or whatever she is.
She's up there.
Yeah,
If she's not 94, she's close.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw that trailer and I was like, I need to see this. Plus, I think Rachel had talked about it. Like, I think she saw it at a film festival.
Oh, okay,
I hope it comes to our theater, but if not, it might be one that I buy sight unseen because I have a feeling I'm gonna love it.
nice.
It just seems like exactly my kind of movie. A little old lady getting revenge on someone who has scammed her.
Scammers, yeah. It looks interesting. I think I want to check it out too.
Well, moving on to The Wind in the Willows, the movie that they made out of these two specials.
Yeah, I didn't even know this existed until you sent it to me.
I I didn't either. Not that I knew the others existed, but I knew the two specials existed a few years ago because we had talked about doing them for I don't know if we had talked about doing them for a Wind in the Willow series or if it was something that I'd thought about for iHeart Animation back when it was just
Yeah, I don't remember.
short reviews, but we've talked about doing these for ages.
Yeah, this has
And
been
I
on our list
just,
for a long time. Yeah.
yeah, I just knew about the two specials. I did not know that there was a movie. And as soon as I started reading about the movie, I thought this is not going to be very good, especially when I saw that they had recast everyone.
Hmm.
And I could not find this movie anywhere. I had to buy this on eBay so that I could watch it. Like that should have given me a clue that this was not worth watching. But I'm a completionist. I had to see it. I had to spend $15 to own this thing. I
Oh,
wish I
Jonathan.
I wish it included the actual specials on the DVD.
Yeah. This basically is just a edited version of Mole and Toad with a new cast. And I could have sworn there was a little bit of Mole's Christmas in it, but if you said there wasn't, I believe you.
I don't think there was because of the way they edited it. I mean, I'll go through what the changes were, but the way they edited it,
Hmm.
there's unless it was somewhere else in the movie that it didn't belong, it
Hmm.
couldn't have been in because at the point in which it happens in the book, they cut out the chunk.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know. But just in terms of like first impressions when I watched this, I thought the cast was awful. They did not sound like they were giving anything close to a good performance. It was like they were reading a script. Like there was no emotion in anything. Like it was like why I cannot figure out why they had to recast it. Like what's the difference between a UK audience and an American audience that the American audience has to have American voices? I like what's wrong with the UK version?
Now, unless there's like a reason, an issue of like not rights, but like maybe the actors need more money if it's cut for an American version or something. I don't know.
I suppose.
But yeah, for me, the voices were kind of it's what I expected. So like I wasn't as turned off by it as you. Actually thought it was. I actually thought it could have been a lot worse than it we got. But if you told me there was like a knockoff American edit of a British Wind in the Willows, this is kind of exactly what the voices I was expecting to be are. So it didn't I guess my expectations helped that it didn't bother me as much as it's definitely not praiseworthy. I'll say that again. It's not praiseworthy, but yeah, it's I'm pretty sure I've heard worse stuffs.
Maybe it's because I was surprised by the quality of the voices in the
Yeah.
specials. Because, like, I went into the specials thinking they were going to be awful.
Okay.
And since they were not awful, like, I didn't love them, but they were watchable. And the
Mhm.
voices were such a huge part of that. I think that's probably what made me think this was such a huge, terrible
You
downgrade.
could probably argue the voices were the best parts
They
of the
were.
special. Yeah.
They were definitely the best
Hmm.
parts.
I think the guy who voiced the Toad in this version, I think this was his first film, if I'm not mistaken.
I
I
should
forget.
actually look up the cast. Like I copied down the names, but I don't actually know who's in it because
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
didn't
I think
care enough to look them up.
I looked it up when I saw it, and I think if I remember, I think this was like his first movie he did or something. He was like a comedian or something. I forget his name. You'll correct me.
Well, the guy for Ratty, his credits go back years, decades. He's got hundreds and hundreds of credits.
Is he Alan
So
Oppenheimer?
Michael Bell,
Michael Bell. Okay, yeah. I know he's a big voiceover guy.
Mole is Steve Boulin, and he has 96 credits. Let's see how far back he goes. His first credits are from the 70s and 80s, but I'm wondering if that's because they're all English dubs of animes.
Me.
So maybe he didn't start with those. Well, there's Pound Puppies in here from the 80s too. So this wasn't his very first.
Okay, that's Toad.
No, that was Mole.
Oh, okay,
Toad is Phil Snyder. He only has 13 credits, and this was his first one.
okay.
If you would have asked me, I would have told you that Mole was the worst one. I'm
Wilson.
I'm
Sorry.
honestly surprised that he has such a long credits history.
Well, maybe the actor is good. Maybe it's just the voice he chose for this role.
It could be. Also, he just kind of felt like he was phoning it in, so maybe they didn't pay him very much and he didn't care.
Yeah. But Phil Snyder is actually he has a Wikipedia page. I'm looking at him. He's a university professor now, but he also was the voice of he started to voice Germany cricket for Disney in May 2010, starting with the Kingdom Hearts series.
Hmm.
I think he did better with that than Mr. Toad.
Badger is William Dennis Hunt. He has 49 credits going back to the 70s. Well, it really starts in the 90s.
Looks like he died in 2020.
Yeah, anyways, the cast did not impress me, but I suppose it probably was me being biased by such a downgrade from Hugh Laurie.
So like, where did this get released? Because we know this didn't go to theaters. So did this version appear on cable TV somewhere, or did this go direct to video?
I think it was a direct-to-video thing.
Direct to video. Okay.
Again, there's like almost no behind the scenes stuff that I could find for either the specials or the movie. I don't think there was any special features. I think it was just the movie. So there was not really a lot that I could tell you about where this came from.
I think you and I are the only ones who've seen this,
It maybe,
at least in the past 20 years.
maybe. Yeah, it's this one is so obscure that it was really hard to find a copy to
Hmm.
watch. Like I said, I had to buy it, and I'm annoyed that I own this. I would much rather own the specials, but they weren't included on the DVD,
You're a glutton for punishment, Jonathan.
apparently. Yeah, this movie starts with the same song that The Adventures of Toad ended with,
Hmm.
which I guess is fine because the music that they used for The Adventures of Mole was uh, not good. The one that The Adventures of Toad ended with was probably the best of all of the music that they had. It wasn't amazing, but it was the only one that I can now think of the tune in my head and actually remember what it sounded like.
Yeah, I can't even remember that, but I think I remember it being eh, better than the others.
Yeah. For the most part, I think the story is relatively the same, but they've
Mhm.
altered some of the dialogue a bit.
Yeah, for like American dub, I guess.
They cut out scenes here and there that
Yeah.
sometimes it seemed random as to what they would cut out. Like both of the specials together, like each one is 50 minutes. So it's really only an hour and 40 minutes if they had cut the whole thing into a movie. I don't feel like that's too long. But even if you want it to be a straight 90-minute movie, you could cut out 10 minutes relatively easy. They cut out like a full half hour of stuff, which seems weird. Like they cut out some things that made sense, but other things like the toll road rabbit guard guy, they cut that out. That's actually from the book. I
Mhm.
feel like they could have left that in. The boat trip and picnic scene all seemed mostly the same. They cut out the montage of Mole swimming with the musical number as well as the Ducks Ditty song,
Mhm.
which I guess that's fine. The
Yeah.
the mole swimming scene wasn't even from the book, so get rid of that. They go straight from that into the trip with Toad, and there's a lot of altered dialogue, and I don't know how much it like as I was watching it, I was just annoyed. So maybe it was just the delivery. I feel like some of the dialogue definitely was changed because like the scene with the horse is now mad that the cart has replaced him as the big thing around here, which is a weird line. It's like, why did they change that line?
I think when I watched this, I kind of wasn't paying so much attention to it. So I didn't notice all the like the exact changes like dialogue wise.
I'm sure there's stuff that I missed. The
Hmm.
things that I noticed mostly had to do with lines that I had taken notice of the
Before.
first time I
Mhm.
watched, like lines that I was familiar with.
Yeah.
Like the horse one, I don't think I would have noticed, except I wrote down the original line
Yeah.
because I was surprised that they actually included the horse talking because they don't always do that.
And this American adaptation, this was the same year, correct? This is still 95. Or was
I
this
th-
done the years after?
I don't know what the timeline is. Like I wish I knew
Yeah.
more about the behind the scenes, so I don't know exactly the timeline as to when this was made
Why?
in and how long after the specials were made that they made this.
We need to find, like I said, we need to find someone who worked on these films and interview them. We'll get so much from that.
After the road trip scene, it's mostly the same for a while. Of course, you've got the car scene, Toad getting obsessed, and then Mole going out in search of Badger by himself. And then at this point, like the scene in the woods, especially when Mole trips over the door scraper, I started feeling like I was watching a bad anime dub. Just because, like, the lines, of course, aren't always matching the mouth movements, but also I
Yeah.
was noticing little bits of dialogue that was changed just enough that I noticed it.
Hmm.
And then I was like, yeah, this whole thing just feels like a bad anime dub.
I mean, but you're probably not wrong.
And then after they get to Badgers, they have the scene talking about taking Toad in hand. And then they completely cut out the rest of the adventures of Mole, which I'm not upset about because it spared us from having to see the hedgehog abominations again.
I think what they put in of Adventures of Mole, I think, was good enough.
Yeah, it makes sense they would want to include more of the adventures of Toad because
Yeah.
between the two, it is the better one.
And I think it's what more people are familiar with the story.
Maybe so, yeah. But also, this is where they would have, or if they should have included part of Mole's Christmas if they were going to, because this is where it would go in. But instead, we skip straight from them going to bed at Badger's house to
Mm,
springtime with Toad working on a new motor car and Badger visiting Rat and Mole to talk about doing an intervention on Toad.
okay. I think I got mixed up with the scene of Mole tripping over the mat, and I thought that was from Mole's Christmas.
No, because Mole's Christmas was them leaving Badger's
Leaving the
house.
yeah.
Yeah, that's where that one began. So I don't think there was any of Mole's Christmas included in this. I thought there was going to be, but then when I saw that it was only an hour and 11 minutes, I was like, oh no, there's definitely no way they can fit any of that in there. They can't even fit the whole two main specials in this.
Well, no one's complaining about Mole's Christmas being not
No,
being there.
yeah. And then I think most of the scenes with them doing the intervention is the same, but altered dialogue. And the most notable was that Toad asks for a priest instead of a lawyer, which I thought was a weird change to make.
Yes, because he's dying and for
I
final
guess I
rights,
guess he's
maybe.
Catholic.
Yeah, yeah, Catholic.
Toad is
The,
Catholic.
needs the final rights to. There you have it. It's canon now. He's not
This
Church of England. He's Catholic.
this Toad doesn't need to write a will. He needs a
Yeah.
priest.
I don't even know who Toad would leave. If he wrote a will, I don't even know who Toad would leave it to.
I mean, he'd probably leave it to his friends. Like he's annoyed by them trying to take him in hand and make a gentleman out of him, but I think he still loves his friends, so I think they would get everything if he died.
Toad, Toad's a character.
He is. He
He,
definitely is.
yeah.
But at this point on, I feel like most of it is the same up until we get to him being arrested because they changed the dialogue in the courtroom scene, even taking out my favorite line where he was cheeking the police.
Oh,
It's like, why did you change this?
I think
This makes no sense.
Americans won't know what that means.
Who cares?
There you go. Who cares?
Let them be confused.
Let them be confused. I want my line.
And then him in jail is mostly the same. I think some of the dialogue is a little different, but mostly the same. Same with the escaping scenes. The biggest change next comes with the barge woman, because for a while I was like, okay, this is all the same. Right up until she ejects him from the boat, because they completely cut out the scene where he steals the horse. Like, are they trying to make him a more redeemable character? Because if that's the case, he steals a car in the next scene.
But that's a car, you see.
I,
In America, we're good at with car stealing. It's part of the history.
I mean, stealing horses is also part of our history.
Well, that's a little too far back.
Total tangent, but I found out recently there's a cemetery up the road from us, like a little country cemetery
Yeah.
called Cuppy's Grove. I found out it was named after a horse thief.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, somewhere, I don't know where this is, but an old family friend, like he's a pretty old guy, was talking about a horse thief stealing horses, and there's like a cave around here somewhere that he was hiding horses in. Like I had never heard of this before.
This sounds like Hole's level of lore right now.
You never know what kind of weird stuff happened in the history of your area.
That is true. You gotta check out the cemetery now.
I mean, my grandpa's buried there. I've been there a bunch of
Oh,
times.
okay, okay.
So, yeah, I'm familiar with the
You
cemetery. I
just didn't
just
know it
was
was a
not
horse
familiar.
thief.
I just was not familiar with that it was named after a horse thief.
I guess that's a legacy for you.
I guess so. But yeah, they completely cut out the scene where he steals the horse. They cut straight to him getting picked up by the couple in the car he'd already stolen, and then hijacking their car. And then the rest of this plays out again, mostly the same, right up until he gets home. It's filled in by Rat. And then they cut out the ferret with the gun.
It's just like all your favorite stuff is just being cut out. The ferret with a gun, the cheeking the police, the I don't know. It's everything you like about this is, I mean, this wasn't meant for you.
I guess so. Not that I would have liked this any better because there's so much else wrong with it, but it's kind of hilarious to me that they kept cutting out things that I notably liked.
Mm,
And then after this, I really thought that they were going to cut out Mole as a washerwoman because that seems like a scene that could easily
yeah,
get cut for time, but they didn't. They included it.
yeah, that's surprising.
And then after that, the whole planning and battle scene all seems to be mostly the same up until they're planning the party afterwards and they cut out Toad's last little song.
Did it have any songs in this besides the first one? Did
I
this
don't think
have the?
so.
Yeah, I don't think this had the Incredible Mr. Toad song, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think they just kept the 90s sounding song because
Mm,
well, they took it from the credits of The Adventures of
Toad,
Toad to put at the
Toad.
beginning, but then they also play it again at the end of this movie.
Hmm.
And that's mostly the end, except for one more change, because they do have the scene with the repayments to all the people that he wronged.
Hmm.
But they changed the barge woman's line. She says, money for the horse. So they've
Oh,
changed it
okay,
to
yeah,
money for the clothes because he'd
yeah, because the
ripped some
clothes.
clothes while he was pretending to be a washerwoman.
That is a really strange choice of just deleting the horse. I guess it would just have to be for time, and that's the only thing I could think of
I suppose,
deleting the
but this is
scene.
so short. Like you could have had it and not like what how long was the scene with him stealing the horse and then selling it to the guy in the field? Like
Yeah.
5 minutes at most.
Okay.
This this movie is only an hour and 10 minutes.
If you're listening to this and you worked on this movie, get in touch with us. We have questions.
And that's basically the end. It does have the scene with the mother weasel and her
Hmm.
child with different voices. But yeah, that's the end.
So, like, if given, I know the answer already, but if given the choice between watching The Adventures of Mole and The Adventure of Toad back to back, or watching this, which one would you choose?
The originals.
Yeah, you do.
They should have just cut those two into a movie themselves. That would have been a perfectly respectable movie.
Yeah,
It had a great cast, a cast that really elevated the material that they had to work with.
you
Because,
like,
well, as you can see with what happened with the movie, the cast
like,
is what made this. The
right,
animation didn't make this, it was the cast.
pretty much. Like I said, I feel it's probably a royalties thing, maybe with the original cast.
I suppose. But it was made so close to the original that it feels like it shouldn't have been a problem, but I don't know the laws between the UK and the US and if a direct to video movie between or two television specials. I suppose there probably was some sort of payments issue. I don't know.
It's a very niche law.
Probably. But yeah, these are pretty hard to find, but if you're interested, watch the original two specials. Don't even bother with the movie.
You could skip most Christmas too.
Yeah, I guess that is the original. I don't know why they started with Mole's Christmas, but you can
I
skip
mean,
that and then
yeah, I would. You could even skip The Adventures of Mole if you had to.
If you had to,
Mhm.
I would say watch them both because it's a complete story, but
Yeah.
you don't technically need to. And The Adventures
Mhm.
of Toad is the better of the two. I mean, I'm biased. I would say if you want to watch the story, watch the other movie from 95.
I gotta see this now.
It's my favorite.
Mhm.
But if you do want to watch this, the original Adventures of Mole, Adventures of Toad, or even just The Adventures of Toad, that's the way to go. Hugh Laurie is great as Toad. He makes it worth watching.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I guess that will be the end of this episode. I feel like we talked a lot more about this than I was expecting, but
Yeah, me too. I thought that would be really quick, but no, you had good notes.
I had opinions.
You had things to say. Seeking the police and the Fred with the gun. We'll never forget that. It's like a hashtag, don't forget, and then a picture of the Fred with the gun. We'll go viral after this.
Well, until the next episode, I think you'll be back for something in the future. We've got a few things planned. So until then, do you want to let people know where they can find you if they want more from you?
Yeah, again, thanks for having me. It's always fun to be on this. So you can check out my blogs at the Animation Commendation at theanimationcommendation.com. I have a lot of animated film reviews, top 13 lists, and I host a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Animation Edition game show on that. And I have a second blog, the My Live Action Disney Project at myliveactiondisneyproject.com, where I'm trying to watch and review every single theatrically released animated Disney film, live action Disney film ever made. So follow me there. Thanks.
Okay, well, we will see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.